How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Unreasonable Clout Podcast. Thank you for the support so far. We're going to get into a video. Ilhan Omar, she went on Face the Nation about less than 10 hours ago. It was released, and it's a 9 minutes filled with a bunch of lies. So I literally took the whole 9 minutes to debunk everything throughout the whole video with receipts and all that. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and get into it because I'm tired of all this stuff, these freaking ragheads and all that. So let's get into it. Let me get this video going real fast. Okay, so we're going to get into a video right now. Ilhan Omar. The title of it's on Face the Nation channel on YouTube, released less than 10 hours ago, about 8 hours ago. It says, Representative Ilhan Omar, any link between alleged Somali fraud and terrorism is a failure of the FBI. That's a quote from her. Let's go ahead and get into this real fast. We're going to start it up real soon. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
And we're joined now by Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Margaret.
Just to let you know, I'm going to be frequently stopping it so I could just jump down to these receipts. We're going to watch some couple clips too, just to fill in. You're going to see some pictures pop up of some people, some affiliates of hers who were convicted and going through a lot of this fraud that she knew personally. So just to inform you.
I have a lot to get to with you, but I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Eg asking them to look.
I'm gonna pause it because I already heard two lies from her. Okay, so the initial question was something on the lines of, do you know about the fraud that's taking place? She said no. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first, there's a guy named Guhad Hashi Saeed. Now, he's Ilhan Omar's former enforcer, also known as the overseer of the voting mobilization right there in Minnesota, the Somali community. Now, he pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. And his organization was called Advanced Youth Athletic Department and is linked to Feeding the Future. I'm pretty sure you guys heard about it in a couple of my other videos before. You're going to hear it a lot. So remember that. Get that organization in your head. Feeding Our Future. You know, they have been accused, and actually they're charging a lot of people. They've been found that they've been fraudulently dishing this money out, $250 million of it. So just remember that Feeding Our Future is going to come up a lot in this video, especially in prior videos and future videos until we get these convictions out the way. So yeah, so his organization was called Advanced Youth Athletic Development, linked to Feeding Our Future. His organization received $2.9 million to $3.2 million, I believe, for the nutrition funding where they were supposed to be feeding all these kids during the COVID pandemic and stuff like that. And he also laundered money to a catering company. Of course, they try to be like, okay, let's allocate this money to this people because it looks like we are feeding all of these people, which they only fed a fraction, a small fraction, a statistically insignificant amount of people were actually fed with those $2.9 million to $3.2 million. And also too, so that's one lie right there. She said she don't know about this fraud and what people are talking about. Also too, there's a restaurant. Now remember this, there's a restaurant called Safari Restaurant, and the owner of it is named Salim Ahmed Saeed. And he's the owner of it, and he actually received $16 million in fraudulent funds from Feeding Our Future. Of course, this is the main organization that was dishing all this fraudulent funds to hundreds of smaller organizations that were mostly Somalian organizations. So the owner, Salim Ahmed Saeed, received 16 million in fraudulent funds. He's actually been convicted, but he hasn't been sentenced yet. And why do I bring up, how can I link them to Ilhan Omar and also the Safari Restaurant? Is because in 2018, she actually threw her election party at night at the Safari Restaurant. So that's a blatant lie right there that she said she didn't know about fraudulent funds. We're going to get into deeper things when it comes to it in a minute too as well. So let's continue.
Into what I
Look,
thought.
I just want to let you know, it's already only less than a minute, 53 seconds into the video, and it's already just debunked 2 of her lies.
Was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer
More than $1
money
billion.
stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Listen.
Well, I want to say, this.
Let me just warn you. Like I said in a previous video, she's trying to push this narrative, right? So she's trying to push this narrative to release or to distance herself from any type of accountability from her and her people. Just listen to the verbiage.
Also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Okay, let me pause it again. So she wants to say that what she said something about pretty much them on the lines of it's sad that all this fraud is happening because the Somalis could have benefited from all that money that was fraudulently funneled to all these organizations. So they're already about 42% of Somali households receive SNAP benefits already. So they're already almost half of them already, 42% are already getting SNAP benefits. And also too, she said that they're taxpayers. Okay, I'll give them credit. They pay about $67 million in taxes in that area alone. But reports are starting to say, as these fraudulent activities are surfacing now and coming to light, they are actually sucking out all the resources 20 to 100 times the amount of taxes that they're already paying. So they pay 67 million in taxes, but they have stolen 20 to 100 times that amount in fraudulent funds so far, plus the 42% that are on SNAP. So when she wants to talk about taxes, or we could have used this, we could have benefited from, yes, you guys definitely benefited already, 20 to 100 times that amount that you guys pay in taxes. So let's keep going, man.
So
it's barely 2 minutes.
Do you think, though, that there was a failure by the Democratic
Listen to the narrative.
government
Listen to the narrative that she's trying to push.
Brazen fraudulent activity here.
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to in my letter that I'd sent to
Remember that
the
letter.
Secretary of Egg, was to see where things were going wrong. How can this amount of money disappear fraudulently without there being alarms being set off? And it is something that, we have to continue to investigate. We have to continue to ask those questions.
Okay, let me pause it real fast. Let me take you back. So she said I'll give her credit. She said she was one of the first to send a letter to warn the Secretary of Ag about this fraudulent activity and suspicious activity going on with these funds that were being dished out from the USDA. So let's rewind a little bit. Okay, so let me break you down a timeline of this fraud and how it's been, how eyes are being upon it, how it's being discovered pretty much. Okay, so let's see. In the summer of 2019, Minnesota state officials found suspicious activity with Feeding Our Future. That's the main organization that funneled all these fraudulent $250 million funds. Now, that was summer of 2019. Now, between the summer and fall of 2020, Minnesota Department of Education spoke with USDA about the fraud because a lot of these organizations were going through the Department of Education to try to get these meals through the schools to all these Somalis and everybody else, supposedly. So that was between the summer and fall of 2020. Now, January 20th, 2022, the FBI actually raided the offices of Feeding Our Future. Then, only then, Ilhan Omar, in February of 2022, wrote a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture about suspicion of fraud. So from 2019, she had to know about it because she got elected in 2018. Like I said, she threw the election party in Safari Restaurant, which was owned by one of these corrupt people who had been convicted. He hasn't been sentenced yet, but he's been convicted. And I'm pretty sure the other guy, what was his name? The other guy, Guhad Hashi Saeed, he was her enforcer and overseer of the voter mobilization in the Somali community right there in Minnesota. Pretty sure he attended too. And actually, you know what? There's a couple pictures that I'm gonna post actually right now as I'm talking. You'll see them pop up somewhere. I don't know, but there's actually pictures of her with these people. So she can't say that this suspicion was not there. Also, too, she also accepted $7,400 in donations from 3 fraudsters that already been convicted of all this fraud. But to her credit, she returned it, but only after the indictments came to light. So that's something right there. So like I said, from 2019, she said she was the first one to put a letter out to send to the Secretary of Agriculture. Yes, she did. I'll give her that. But that was in 2022 in February, when January 20th, 2022, they already did the raids. So they were on her butt. They were on her behind. So she had no choice but to try to distance herself from these people. I know there's a lot of fraud going on, especially with her finances. They said her net worth from 2024 to or 2023 to 2025. Now she's a multimillionaire, and she never even touched millions before. And this just happened to be around the time that all of this fraud and stuff was going about. It's crazy. So she's really trying to distance herself. So let's get into this other thing too.
As you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was
same
all
old rhetoric,
negligence, or that it was like
race card type stuff
of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman. And that was her way of making sure that this would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue. The AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department.
I'm gonna pause it right there.
In that lawsuit.
So she said a name, Keith Ellison. Let's see, Keith Ellison. I was going to use this for a different video. Tim Walz and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison are actually being investigated, but I'll just throw this fact out there. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is accused of agreeing not to prosecute Somalians for their crimes in exchange for campaign cash. Now, these are just accusations, but there's a current investigation happening on it, but so it can't be proven. But the suspicious activity, he received tens of thousands of dollars in campaign funds from these individuals, the Somalians, of course, who were later charged in the pandemic era for the welfare fraud schemes feeding our future. They were all incorporated with each other, so to speak. And another suspicious activity from Attorney General Keith Ellison is some of the funds were returned, but only after it became known and clear, just like Ilhan Omar. So she's just trying to distance herself, just like Keith Ellison. So she wants to throw him in it. Okay, well, we'll just bring him in it too. So anyways, let's continue.
It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these.
All right, so I'll pause it real fast. So she just pretty much made a point, which is our point, that she said that he fought for that money to keep coming, right? And then some type of judge agreed to it and said, yeah, the money could keep coming. This money ended up being in the hands of these corrupt people. So let's play it again. Let's continue.
Investigations continue, and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
Well, it's going to have impact for your community, because we've already heard that the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here, because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism.
Now, listen to this. This is important. Hold on. So she's asking about the terrorism, and she's trying to distance herself from all this stuff, but we're about to catch her up right now in a minute. So just look at her mannerisms, the verbiage, look at her whole body language go crazy when she's talking about Somalians funneling that money to terrorism. Look at this.
To look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment, because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system.
You see the narrative?
In not
the narrative continues.
And basically charging them with these charges. And so I do know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from U.S. tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we want those people prosecuted. And we want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen again.
Okay, look. So I just want to play a clip right here. So when she said that she doesn't know about people being linked to terrorism, check this out. This was in 2016, I believe, before she became an elected official. This is in her hometown, Minneapolis or Minnesota. Check this out. So she said that, oh, we want to know about the terrorism, but she actually, there's a clip right here. She actually put her name on the line and asked for leniency with these 9 Somalis from her state, from her district, from her town, who plan to become ISIS members. So look at it. This is her.
Sentencing for 9 Somali American men is set for next week in Minneapolis, but a newly elected official is asking for leniency.
Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the judge asking for compassion instead of decades of prison time.
And Fox 9's Karen Scullin joins us now with what she had to say to defense attorneys and U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar. Karen?
Well, defense attorneys are asking for leniency, but so are several others who filed letters to the judge on behalf of the defendants. But U.S. prosecutors responded tonight with strong arguments why all of them should, in fact, receive the recommended sentence.
What type
This
Election
her.
night
She
was
almost
just
looking
2
like
days ago, but it
AOC.
seems Minnesota Representative-elect Ilhan Omar may have already made her first move as an elected official. In a letter signed November 8th, Omar asks a U.S. district judge for compassion when sentencing 9 Minnesota Somali American men convicted of trying to join the terrorist group ISIS. She says the best deterrent to fanaticism is a system of compassion. We must alter our attitude and approach if we truly want to affect change. We should refocus our efforts on inclusion and rehabilitation. But she's not the only one.
I'm gonna pause it right
letters,
there. We've seen enough already. Now look at how many years did these 9 Somali men in Minnesota get sentencing for conspiring to join ISIS? Receive varying sentences. So Guled Omar, these are just the key sentences, the big sentences. Guled Omar, he got 35 years. He was considered the ringleader of it. We got Abla Habla blah blah blah, Dodd and Muhammad Farah, whatever the freak, however you say these guys' names. They got 30 years each, and the other defendants, the sentences varied, with some receiving 15 years, while others got reduced sentences, for 10 years. Hamza Ahmed, or less time, like 30 months, probably snitching for cooperating. Yeah, exactly what it says. And some people got lighter sentences simply from just cooperating and probably didn't have a lot of their hands deep into a lot of things. So there's that. And let's go back to her video.
There are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you. In this extraordinary cabinet meeting, he said Somalis, quote, come from hell. They complain and they do nothing but bitch. Take a listen.
These are
We
people
know this
that
clip,
do
man.
nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
Garbage.
Thank you.
They're applauding, of course. Why wouldn't they?
That knocking is vehement agreement from his cabinet members there. I just wonder what the reaction is in your district to have that from
Now
the highest
listen,
office.
same old narrative.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting.
Crybaby.
These are Americans that he is calling garbage.
Barely Americans,
and
if I would
we
ask.
feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community, and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has.
There she is with the creepy, like it's not creepy to marry your brother so he could get some school papers. We talked about that before.
With me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen to the president.
So she's pretty much saying that Donald Trump is inciting violence, almost talking like her, freaking turning into Somali, man, studying these guys too much, man. I just need a freaking rag on my head. But anyway, yeah, she's trying to say that Donald Trump is inciting violence with his words that can cause violent action to these Somalian communities, which is also.
And 95% of the Somalis in your state are U.S. citizens.
Yes.
Just
Man,
for
how much
clarity
longer we
there.
gotta listen to this
But the
freaking
president has
raghead,
restricted
dude?
all immigration processing, including asylum claims from Somalis already on U.S. soil, along with 18 other countries. ICE reports it has rounded up about 19 people, and they put out press releases with the images of about 5 of them that they say are the worst of the
Now listen to
worst.
this. This is
that
key.
The entirety
This is
of the
key.
crackdown to date?
Yeah, so far we know of the people that they've picked up in Minnesota. About 5 of them are Somalis. And from what I have read and from the people that I've spoken to, all of them had already had orders of removal. So these are not people who are undocumented, but people who have committed crimes and who should have already been sent out of the country.
So you see that, right? So this is the distance that she's trying to put between her and these fraudsters. So of course, you've seen her right now just throw under the bus the people, which is fine. These people already had a deportation order expedited, so they got them. They're in the process of getting them the hell up out of here. That's what they're talking about. ICE going to Minnesota, and I'm not sure if they're talking about specifically Minneapolis, where her district is at. But they're in Minnesota nonetheless, and they're rounding up these people who have expedited deportation orders. Now, she had no problem saying like, oh yeah, I'm fine with them taking them. No problem. But you see, in California, where I'm at, they have a real problem with that. So I think I'll give her credit on sticking to her guns when it comes to that. California could actually learn a lot from her when it comes to that. But she pretty much has no choice because all this fraud is so close to her, and she's trying so hard to distance herself that she can't distance herself from all of the how would you say, all of the offenders and the criminals. You know what I mean? She can't distance herself from all of them. So the ones that she will accept are the ones that need to go already. So learn, California, from this freaking fraudster.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America?
Stupid smile,
How do you
man.
understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know,
let me just get this off my chest, man. Jewish people, they were coin clipping, and they did have LGBTQ books. Just had to say that.
As we know, there have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, we're
That's a key point.
Yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive.
Barely productive.
Part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
I'm glad that's the end of it. But anyway, at the end right there, that was a nail in the coffin. She sealed for her own future, pretty much. All this stuff, like I said, I literally debunked everything that she said. But you see how she described, okay, we've seen how they treated when the Italians and the Irish came. Now it's the Somalis. She's trying to say all that stuff. We're just good at recognizing patterns that disrupt the culture and the nationalism that we have here, and that we have to pretty much, how would you say, we have to preserve it here. So we recognize patterns of these communities and these cultures, and Somalians are the same thing. Well, obviously we didn't, Italians and Irish and stuff, they were able to assimilate. That's the thing. Now these people don't want to assimilate. And so that was the final nail in the coffin, but that video's done. I want to bring up another point where she said, oh, I don't know if we're funneling money to these terrorist groups. I don't know if we ever did it. There's always people saying this or that, but it's never proven. But look, so two prominent Somali women, this is 2010 or 2011. Yeah, it happened in 2009 or 2010, but they were found guilty in 2011. Two prominent Somali women convicted in the U.S. for sending money to Al-Shabaab. That's their names. She's 35, and then Hawa Mohammed Hassan is 64, both naturalized U.S. citizens from Somalia. And they were found guilty in 2011 for funneling funds to the terrorist group, sometimes under the guise of helping famine victims in Somalia. So the key details of the case: convictions in 2011, a jury convicted them of providing material support to Al-Shabaab, a designated terrorist organization. They raised funds through door-to-door solicitation, teleconferences, and in Somali communities, claiming money was for famine relief, but directing it to Al-Shabaab. The sentences, they got a bunch of sentences, and they're right there in Minnesota too as well. But they were actually caught, one of them was actually caught on the phone telling the terrorists, oh, these people think that it's going for famine relief and to help out over there, but they don't know that I'm sending you the money directly. So there's that. And also, I want to throw this article in while we're at it. This is the New York Post, just made this on the December 14th. What did Ilhan Omar know about the $1 billion welfare fraud case in Minnesota, in her Minnesota district? Now, this might blow you guys away. U.S. Rep. Ilhan Omar, close ties to $1 billion welfare scam in her Minnesota congressional district are being uncovered. Omar held parties at one of the key restaurants, Safari Restaurant, named in the fraud, knew one of its now convicted owners, and one of her own staffers has also been convicted, both for stealing millions. Now, I had already told you that. And this is a picture of them together. She's right here with some fraudsters. So she's trying to say that she doesn't know any fraudsters. This is when they did the raid. But Omar, look, this is what's going to blow your mind. Omar even introduced the bill that led to the $250 million in fraud. Yet she claims to have been completely unaware of it. So when it comes to stuff like this, you know, like I said, I debunked everything that she pretty much just said, word for word, with the receipts. This is the stuff that I just read. You can look it up yourself. All these facts. Now, now she understands that all the stuff that she's saying, people aren't going to take the time to research it. You know what I mean? They're just going to pretty much be all for her and have her back. Well, it's easy to debunk somebody's claims when your nation's average IQ is bubbling at room temperature. You know what I mean? So it was really easy for me to debunk this. It could be really easy for you to debunk this. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to get up out of here. Just had to debunk all these lies, and I'm tired of these ragheads. We need to get them out of here like yesterday. So leave in the comments below what you guys think about all of her lies, any claims that you thought that were wrong, or where you need to find them. I could send you the sites, all of that stuff. So what do you guys think about all this fraud and how it's coming closer to Ilhan Omar? You can see that she's trying to distance herself from it all. One more for the road. But yeah, that pretty much explains her. So in the comments below, tell me what you guys think. Until next time, this is Unreasonable Clout Podcast, and God bless you guys.